Hey everybody, welcome. It's Tech Tuesday, 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, and today I'm going to be talking about the latest in broadband news. I'll be right back. Thanks for joining me. I am Rick Uzzi, VP of Marketing here at Zcorum, and this is Tech Tuesday. So thanks for joining me again. Today I'm going to be talking about the latest in broadband news. While we're live here, if you have any comments, want to add to the discussion, go ahead and just go into the chat feature in YouTube, and you can type in your comments there. If you have any questions, you can do that as well. So let's see what's going on as far as broadband today. So first off, this is big news. So the Ardoff Auction, this is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. This is a fund that was put up to provide rural broadband or incentives for rural broadband. It gave operators the ability to bid in order to get funds from the government that come from USF funds, that fee that you see on your phone bill. And they were able to bid in order to accept a certain amount of assistance, and that auction is now done and the winners are announced. You can see here it mentions Charter being really a big winner in this, in that they got, I think, the most locations, and then SpaceX, Windstream also. So $9.2 billion was awarded in this. Again, you can see here we've got Charter Communication bidding as COO Holdings. That was the biggest winner as far as the measured number of locations. They got $1.22 billion in the auction, and that was over 1 million locations in 24 states. They're going to be using that to roll out broadband in these rural areas. The biggest winner by funding, though, was a company called LTD Broadband, which won $1.3 billion, so a little bit more, and fewer locations, 528,000 locations in 15 states. And you can see some of the others here. There's this Rural Electric Cooperative Consortium, and they won $1.1 billion for 618,000 locations in 22 states. And that's a consortium, if I recall, it was like 100 or so EMCs, electric membership co-ops, that bid in this. So this is going to be, again, 22 states. So lots of different EMCs that are going to be using that money to be able to roll out broadband in the area. And they are a perfect entity to do that, because one of the issues you have with rural broadband is you have, in some rural towns, you have some pretty good broadband because you've got a concentrated group of people, a good-sized population for a town, a rural town, let's say. And it's not that expensive because the customers are close together, so you can set up your infrastructure if you're doing, however you're doing it, whether it's cable, fiber, wireless, everybody's kind of clustered together, and you can provide broadband. But when you start talking about all of those little dead areas in between the small towns that you have in various states, then that's where it's difficult to get broadband. It's difficult to get somebody to step up and do that. But EMCs tend to cover those areas with power, and they have power poles, so they're a great organization or entity to be able to do this. So they're getting funding to do this, and they will probably be doing that via fiber and maybe some wireless technology. So you can see some of the other winners here. In fact, there's a list I'll show you in a minute that's got them all listed. It says nearly all areas for the Ardoff auction, that's almost 99%, received a winning bid. So all of the areas that the FCC had put out there, almost all of them, 99% received a winning bid. $9.2 billion for 49 states. And let's see, the auction's been budgeted to award up to $16 billion. So not all 16 went in this first round. And this first round was for unserved, where you didn't have it, one customer with at least 25/3 service. That was in phase 1. So any money that was not used is going to be rolled into phase 2, which would be for underserved, where it's you have some broadband, but it's not unserved. So it says nearly all RDOF auction winners, 99.7, have committed to deploying service at speeds of at least 100 by 20, so 100 meg down, 20 meg up, with 85% getting gigabit broadband or promising to provide gigabit broadband. And that's really important. The stipulation from the FCC was that it had to be at least 25/3. And that's their minimum right now definition for broadband. But the way that they arranged this auction was that they weighted things so that it was more advantageous if you were going to commit to a higher speed, like a gigabit, or a lower latency. So those that did that were more likely to win in that case. And we can see that here. It says the weighting system used in the auction was designed to favor bids to provide higher speed service. And by the way, if you look down below in this video, I've got some information on a few of these topics that I'm going to go over, like RDOF. I did a complete broadcast on that if you want to know more about that. There's a link down there on that. There's a link on a couple of other things that I'll talk about here in a minute. Big name companies that qualified to bid but are not in the Ardoff auction winners list included Verizon and Viasat. So Viasat provides a lot of service via satellite, but geostationary satellite, which is 30,000 feet up, plus 30,000 plus feet. And because of that, high latency. So again, they'd have a harder time winning because of that latency and the weight of that latency that brings down their bid. You've got SpaceX that has got low Earth orbit satellites, so they have low latency and they've got fast speeds. They, I don't think they'll get up to a gig, but it's possible in the future as they launch more satellites and maybe increase what they have up in space and the technology. But they can do the 100 megabits per second. So that's good. That's satellite service. That's going to be a good offering for these rural areas where once the satellites are up, you don't need to worry about last mile infrastructure. The only issue that they have, and they may apply some of these funds to that, would be the cost of the terminal unit that the end user has to have. So the end user is going to have an antenna that's got a fairly expensive phased array antenna in it. And because of that, it's expensive. So this CPE that goes at the customer premises is going to be expensive. So maybe they can use some of the funds here to offset the cost of getting these customers up and running. So that's Ardoff. And then here again, there's a list of some the people that won, and it shows the states that they won and then the technology they used. So again, LTD Broadband had the most dollars and 528,000 locations, 15 states, and they're going to be using fiber and fixed wireless. So all different kinds of technologies can be used here, and they're going with fiber and fixed wireless. Charter, you've got, makes sense, they're going to be doing fiber and cable. So obviously a cable operator, but a lot of cable operators are doing fiber in greenfield areas, and it's probably going to be a big portion of what they're going to be doing as they roll this out, maybe in areas where they don't already have DOCSIS technology. Then you've got Rural Electric Cooperative Consortium. Again, that's that 100 or so EMCs. They're going to be doing fiber, which is not unexpected. And you've got SpaceX with their satellites. So it says that they're covering 35 states, but really they can cover anywhere where they have satellite coverage, but they bid, I guess, on 35 states. Windstream, and that's important for them. They needed something to help them defray the costs of putting more fiber out in their network. Same thing for Frontier. So they're going to be doing fixed, they're going to be doing Windstream, they're going to be doing some XDSL, interesting. So maybe upgrading some plant there. Fiber, and then fixed wireless as well. Then you got Nextlink, fixed wireless, Frontier, fiber, and fixed wireless. Frontier is another one that really needed some help with getting more fiber out in their network and getting rid of some of the DSL that they have. And then you've got a few others here that you see, including CenturyLink, also saying that they're going to be doing some asymmetric XDSL and then fiber as well. So they're probably going to be upgrading some of their DSL plant in addition to doing fiber. Let's see, C-Band. So C-Band is another auction that's scheduled, and actually it's starting today, so that's why this is news. So C-Band is a band of spectrum that's currently being used by satellite operators that are beaming programming down to Earth stations, to cable companies, local TV affiliates, that kind of thing. So that's basically what they do. And the lower portion of that band is being vacated. The FCC is vacating that so that it can be used for mid-band spectrum for 5G and fixed wireless kinds of opportunities here. So you see it's at 3.7 gigahertz and 3.98 gigahertz. And again, if you look below this video, you'll see that I did a prior broadcast on C-Band. If you want to know about that, it's a really good primer on everything you want to probably know about C-Band or that you need to know. So again, this is being vacated, and you've got these satellite operators that are using it now. So that's part of the problem, is that somebody was using this. So it's going to take longer for the spectrum to become available. The good news is that once they vacate that, then this is going to be unencumbered. There's not going to be anybody else using it. We just had the CBRS auction, where that's dynamic spectrum sharing being shared between some government operations and then some licensed operators, and then some unlicensed operators. So that's also mid-band spectrum. That auction is over. They've been using the unlicensed spectrum for some time now, and now the licenses are available, and people are starting to roll out the licensed spectrum as well. So that's already ongoing, and that's available. This is going to take longer, but it's a big, big swath of spectrum, which is why there was a lot of interest in this. You can see here, analysts at New Street Research believe that C-band bidders will dole out a total of $51 billion in bids. And that's about $21 billion more than what was predicted by another analyst, Raymond James. So they're kind of all over the map on this. So one's saying $51 billion, one's saying that's $21 billion more than Raymond James. And you got Morgan Stanley Research, which is kind of in that realm of $26 billion. But their high-end estimates go to $35.2 billion. So there's a lot of, nobody really knows. We won't know till the auction starts going. And as an example, in the CBRS auction that I was talking about, the Citizen Broadband Radio Service, that again is mid-band spectrum and 3.5 gigahertz, and that was a much smaller amount of spectrum, not as much spectrum, and again it was dynamically shared. But that ranged from 2 billion to 10 billion as far as estimates and what that would fetch, but wound up getting around 4.4 billion. So it was right close to the middle point. Well, I guess on the lower end of the middle point there, and what people were thinking that would fetch for that spectrum. And as far as who's bidding, Verizon is expected to really go hard after this, and they need to because they are short on mid-band spectrum. T-Mobile has got a lot of mid-band spectrum, so they're going to be less interested in this. AT&T has got a good amount of mid-band spectrum, and they've got other things going on. So Verizon is really expected to go hard after this spectrum. Their 5G strategy, because they didn't have a lot of mid-band spectrum, has been mmWave, which is the shorter waves that don't go as far. So they've been rolling out 5G with mmWave in urban areas, very small coverage areas, very fast, but not a lot of coverage. So they're going to be looking at trying to counter what T-Mobile is doing, which is more of a nationwide 5G kind of rollout, where they're using low-band spectrum and mid-band spectrum to get not as fast speeds as Verizon can do, but nationwide coverage. You see here it says they have the least amount of low-band and mid-band spectrum, so it needs C-band to catch up to its rivals. T-Mobile already commands vast holdings, 2.5 gigahertz, because of when they purchased Sprint. But they're not going to sit back, so they're probably going to, and they mentioned here, expected to bid up C-band prices. So they may go grab some to make sure that Verizon, their competitor, doesn't get it, or they may be bidding up the price to make sure that Verizon doesn't get a really good deal on this. And then it says AT&T because of some financial things, and then focusing on HBO Max right now, that might dampen their C-band enthusiasm. They may not participate as much in that. So on the 5G front, again talking about mmWave, again this is what Verizon has been deploying in limited areas and urban areas like Chicago, Atlanta, they've just announced recently. And there's always a question of how fast can it go, can it do 1 gigabits per second? Well, these three companies have just proven that. So it's TIM, Ericsson, and Qualcomm did get to 1.5 gigabits per second on a 5G mmWave fixed wireless access system. So 5G can be used for mobile. If you get a 5G phone, you can do that. But they're also, Verizon, when they're offering this mmWave, they're doing it really as a fixed mobile service, fixed wireless service, where in your home you can get this service. You have to have an antenna on each side of the window is how they're doing it, and you have to have a line of sight to a 5G small cell, but they're basically offering like a fixed wireless service. So it's not just mobile. And they got up to 1 gigabit per second here, these three organizations. One of them is Italy's Telecom Italia, that's what TIM is, and then Ericsson and Qualcomm. So the three of them together got 1 gigabit per second on the downlink and 700 megabits per second on the uplink. And that took place in Rome. And the distance was 6.5 kilometers between the 5G mmWave device and the base station. So base station, I guess, would be your CPE, and mmWave device, I'm assuming, is the small cell. So about 4 miles approximately, which is a pretty good distance. Again, that's got to be line of sight. So this would have been an area in Rome where there's absolutely nothing between that access point and that CPE device because of mmWave. There's a very high attenuation, so trees, buildings, can't go through walls, anything like that. In fact, if it was a very humid day in Italy, it might not have gotten this fast or this far, because even moisture in the air can impact this. So I'm sure it was a test with the best or perfect conditions there. Companies say the demonstration confirms that the usability of millimeter wave spectrum not only for urban high-density mobile deployments, but also for 5G fixed wireless access coverage. So again, there's interest in 5G and probably the mid-band spectrum right now nationwide for your mobile devices. And fixed wireless makes more sense where, again, you've got good line of sight, a small cell area in an urban area. You've got your cells very close together, line of sight, and you can do a pretty good fixed wireless shot to folks. Of course, in those urban areas is probably where you need it least, right? Because there in urban areas you tend to have good wired internet service. You've got cable operators that have got DOCSIS 3.1 service, maybe DOCSIS 4.0, moving to that. You've got fiber to the home, so there's less need for it there. But again, they were able to get 1 gigabit per second in this test. Another news item here about 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi 6, it's a new Wi-Fi standard, and the 6 doesn't have to do with 6 gigahertz. It just happens to be that it's kind of the 6th generation of Wi-Fi. And again, if you look below, you'll see there's a link to a broadcast that I did about Wi-Fi 6 if you want to learn more about that. But basically, what was kind of new for this Wi-Fi 6 was being able to use this, use it in the 6 gigahertz spectrum band. So this was, right now they've authorized the first device to do that. And again, this unlicensed spectrum is between 5.9 approximately gigahertz and 7.125 gigahertz. So again, this is very fast spectrum that was allocated for Wi-Fi under Wi-Fi 6, and now there is a device that can take advantage of this particular spectrum here. So again, Wi-Fi 6 supports other spectrum, other areas of spectrum, and again, you can check that broadcast to see exactly where it covers, but this is exciting for those that want to be able to use this very, very fast spectrum here. This new generation of Wi-Fi is quite a bit different in some of the technology that it uses, and again, check out that broadcast. So this is not just like going from 3G to 4G or even 4G to 5G on the mobile side, and it's not like earlier iterations, not all like earlier iterations of Wi-Fi that pretty much were the same. You had some increases, some additional technology, multiple antennas, and some other things that could help you get fast service. But this really does look at things in a very different way. It's kind of a different paradigm for Wi-Fi. So it's going to be faster even at the lower spectrum amount, kind of spectrum that you would normally have Wi-Fi. It's going to be faster, less congested because of some of the things that they added to Wi-Fi 6. And this obviously helps having this very fast spectrum here as well. And mentions that the FCC made this 1200 megahertz of spectrum available in April. And Chairman Pai said Wi-Fi 6 could be more than 2.5 to 3 times faster than previous iterations of the standards family. And again, that's Wi-Fi 6, so that's not even just talking about the 6 gigahertz, because Wi-Fi 6 encompasses different spectrums, not just 6 gigahertz. The move by the FCC increased the spectrum available for Wi-Fi by a factor of 5, so this made a lot of new spectrum available as well when they did this. So COVID, we're all still dealing with that. Wherever you are in the country right now, things seem to be spiking. So, what is that doing to broadband? And we saw, earlier in the year, as everybody started working from home and students started doing their work from home, that things, that broadband operators were seeing big increases in usage, and that continues. In fact, it's peaked up again. So we see here just a few takeaways just in general from this. National downstream peak traffic has increased in recent weeks, which we've seen, and then total cumulative growth since March 1st is 27.4%. That's on the downstream. And then the big thing for cable operators was on the upstream, because people are doing stuff like what I'm doing right now, which is broadcasting this, and lots of Zoom calls and those kinds of things, where people were not doing that as much from home or even from work. I mean, I don't know how many meetings I've been in on Zoom calls or Google Meet where normally I'd be sitting in a conference room with people. So big increase in upstream, and you can see that here, 46.9% since March. And then so throughout the pandemic, provider backbone networks have showed no signs of congestion. in general. So in other words, it's not been any worse than it normally would. The cable companies and telephone companies, fiber networks had all had their infrastructure in a good place at that point. A lot of cable operators had upgraded to DOCSIS 3.1, and that helped them out. Some interesting changes. Wi-Fi data traffic and Wi-Fi calling increased, as you can imagine, as cable broadband networks continue to support the offload of mobile data traffic. So that just makes sense. If you're in your house, you're going to be on your Wi-Fi network because you're doing a lot of different things. And then you can see here, again, just the growth. You had March 1st, and then we had this big spike, and it's been up and down. It started to drop a little bit as time went on, and maybe some places opened up, more people went back to work. And then we had some up and down. And here we've seen, this was back in August, it started to level out, now it's climbing again. So with the colder weather, again, more people have, gotten ill and more concerns. So more places are maybe closing down, maybe more people going back home to work more often. So that's what we're seeing. And this is on the downstream side, I believe. And then, yeah, we've got the upstream peak right here. And again, you can see this upstream, unlike downstream, which has kind of been up and down a little bit, upstream peaked and it stayed pretty high, pretty flat. It did dip a little bit, but now again, it's on the uptick right there in the last few months. And then they've got a map here showing how different states or the nation is faring. And one thing I didn't understand about this is they show the overall growth since March 1st, which is really kind of when the pandemic kicked off, as people started really working from home more. And they're showing a negative 0.43% weekly over this period of 11/14 and 11/21. I didn't understand that because I saw both of these charts going up here, but they show you that nationwide, and then again on the upstream side. And then you can click on different states, see how they're doing. Here in Georgia, what we're doing, not too different. Florida actually is lower. You've got an older population there, so maybe fewer people impacting, fewer people on broadband possibly. Although I looked at Montana and that was higher, so I didn't quite get that. But if you look at, states that maybe are more farms and those kinds of things, you've got 18%, 21%, 23%, 12% for South Dakota, 15% for North Dakota. So it depends on the state population probably and how much broadband usage there is. And it could also be, well, generally it's going to be, this was the increase over March. So yeah, it really is more about the population and the usage. So also speaking of COVID, so because of this, Comcast has just decided to extend their support for internet access through June. And what they've been doing, it says for the third time, Comcast has extended its initiatives to keep users connected during the COVID-19 pandemic. Comcast will continue to provide free internet service for the first 60 days for new Internet Essential customers, as well as keep providing free internet access to more than 1.5 million Wi-Fi hotspots through June 30th. So they keep extending this, and that's nice that they're doing that. Some goodwill and some good publicity there. And they along with all broadband operators have been doing really well because of the pandemic. So it says in its third quarter earnings in October, Comcast posted the best broadband quarterly results in its history by adding more than 633,000 residential and business subscribers. Over the past 9 months, they added more broadband subscribers than they did all of last year. And that's been the case for really all operators, because as people got home, started working from home, they realized maybe they didn't have a broadband connection. They were using their phone and it was fine because they had broadband at work, but they realized, well, the phone's not really going to work well for me at home. I can maybe tether it, but it's not a good plan. Or maybe they had an old DSL account and they upgraded to fiber, so that's going to be more revenue maybe, or different speeds. So the operator's doing much better. And then also some edge outs. A lot of the operators are realizing that in maybe areas that were a little bit unserved that are adjacent in their territories, they have been edging out their infrastructure to be able to serve those folks. So they've added more customers on the broadband side for sure. And again, COVID related. More about COVID. So if you're somebody that provides, if you sell broadband access equipment, CMTS, fiber equipment like OLTs, that kind of thing, you may have seen your equipment sales drop. It's been for a couple of different reasons, and a lot of it has been related to just a kind of focus. Everybody's focused on COVID and putting off decisions to buy stuff, because there's a lot of uncertainty, and some of it is because they're trying to make do with what they have, and they don't really have time to be thinking about that. So this particular firm was showing that equipment sales have been down 7% in 2020, and like I say, if you're in this business, we sell equipment. We sell routers, and we have a CMTS that we sell, and carrier grade NAT kind of stuff. Those kinds of things have been kind of put on the back burner if companies can do that. And you see here, sales of the hardware and software needed to underpin the global internet are projected to fall, or to finish 7% down, 11.4 billion in 2020. But good news on the bright side, they expect that global spending will rebound by 5% in 2021. So even though people have been putting off these purchases, they believe in 2021 that companies will start, there'll be some pent-up demand, they'll have to start adding equipment. It says during the pandemic, these MSOs have been able to rise to significant increases in downstream and upstream, in many cases simply using the tools and tweaks enabled by DOCSIS 3.1 on the cable side, right? So they had already upgraded their networks. They've got DOCSIS 3.1. They've been doing things like node splits and other investments in existing converged cable access platforms, CCAP, have resulted in them postponing planned transitions of the networks to distributed access architecture. So rather than doing some of the things they were doing to push out to the edge with DAA in different ways, they've kind of put that off. So they're expected to in 2021 kind of pick up with that spending again. So that's good news for those that are servicing that market. And of course, with the vaccine coming in, that's going to help. So I think we'll be seeing things getting back to normal, and it will pick up from there. And then one more fun thing related again to COVID is Warner Brothers is going to actually debut their entire 2021 film slate, including Dune and Matrix 4, on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time. So if you have HBO Max, for example, when Matrix 4 comes out, you'll be able to watch it on the same night that it premieres in theaters. And that's their whole slate. And originally they had announced this with Wonder Woman, which is coming out in December of this year. So they originally announced that, and everybody thought that was going to be a kind of one-time thing. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, they're doing that. But it's not. They're going to actually do it with everything. Instead, the studio will deploy a similar release strategy for the next 12 months. That includes the Matrix 4, Dune remake, and some other movies. You can see a list here. Godzilla vs. Kong. Angelina Jolie's, let's see, video game adaptation, Mortal Kombat. I guess that's not Angelina Jolie. Okay, so she's in Those Who Wish Me Dead, Space Jam, A New Legacy, so a few remakes here. So lots of movies coming out from them, and all of them will be premiering on HBO Max and in the theaters at the same time. And the way it's going to work, so like Wonder Woman, it says the films that Warner Brothers plans to release in 2021 will be available to HBO Max subscribers for 31 days. So if you want to watch it on HBO Max, you've got to watch it within 31 days. And after that, then the movies will only play in theaters until they reach the normal kind of way that you would watch it at home, where then it's playing on practically every channel that you turn on the TV. So you do have that opportunity there to watch it while it's in the theaters on HBO Max. And it's not going to be, they're making it sound like it is going to be just a one-year thing. So it is still temporary. They say, they've stressed that the initiative isn't expected to continue into 2022 or beyond. It's considered a temporary solution in response to the ongoing global health crisis. So again, just one more impact of COVID that, sometimes, COVID can be terrible, for those who get it, for those who have loved ones who get it, for those who have, a lot of times the impact is not really so much related to people getting the illness as it is to things that are canceled, all of the things that are canceled, but there are some upsides, including working from home, spending less money on gas, those kinds of things, and being able to watch some of these films if you have HBO Max. So that's just something to consider. If you don't have HBO Max, maybe go out and get that, and you'll have a slate of movies that you can watch that will be new releases at the same times that they're in the theaters. So that's all for today for Tech Tuesday. I will be back next week with a new topic. I haven't decided what yet, and just be aware that I will be off during the 2 weeks of the Christmas season and New Year's week, so Christmas week and New Year's week. But I'll be back next week for Tech Tuesday. That'll be at 3 o'clock, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.